A powerful brain gave our ancestors a huge advantage over other animals. And humans, evolving in the process of evolution, improving tools and skills, began to multiply rapidly, mastering more and more territories. Human biological evolution proceeded so quickly that the innate behavioral programs, which require a significant evolutionary period for their modification, did not have time to change completely. Therefore, modern humans have both purely animal instincts, which are characteristic of various species of gregarious animals, and specific human instincts. Let's look into this with the example of such a simple, and at the same time basic thing for any living organism as food intake. We invite a business partner to lunch at a restaurant to discuss an important matter in an informal setting. When friends or the woman we love come over, we make sure to treat them. Why do we do this? Why do we serve food and not do something else? Ever wondered? It's simple. There is an ancient animal instinct that dictates the rule of existence. You can only share food with your own people. Only members of their own pack have access to prey in the animal world. The others are chased away. For food is the basis of survival. That's why, in order to establish trust, we have a meal together. We use the instinct that lives in us. It's the same with alcohol, or with the Indian peace pipe. The cruel law of the jungle, written deep in our brains, says, you can only relax among your own kind. For if you relax among strangers, they will tear you apart. This is also an animal instinct. It's the same with fire, but it is no longer an animal instinct, but one that is only inherent in man, a younger instinct, the community of fire. The tribe gathered around the fire in the cave, only their own. That's why, when we meet with our loved ones, we necessarily light something. Candles, fireplace, campfire, brazier, barbecue. There has to be an open fire, which produces on us a magical effect, bringing us closer, fascinating, creating a sense of peace and security. And sometimes we combine it all into one pile and have a barbecue with friends, where there is food and alcohol and fire. Then both human and more ancient animal instincts work in parallel, reinforcing each other. And sometimes such joint relaxation of human individuals results even in wild dances in the woods around the fire, if there is enough alcohol to make consciousness disconnect completely, and only instincts work. Exactly like tens or hundreds of thousands of years ago. As a matter of fact, the mind in general is most often concerned only with the service of the instinct. For example, in the case of danger, the instinct of self-preservation dictates, through emotion, fear, that one must save oneself. And the mind merely serves this instinctive decision, figuring out exactly how to escape and where to hide. And in the same way, it is the work of instincts that determines the relationship between a man and a woman. For example, the primitive instinct of reproduction of a young and inexperienced girl determined that a given bad guy, that is a dominant, demonstrating a high primitive rank of a young sexually mature male, is viable, according to Stone Age concepts. Consequently, his genes must necessarily be passed on to his offspring. Then the instinct turns on the girl's emotional state, the so-called love. This state must force the female to bring offspring from this particular male. Reason, of course, immediately turns off, so as not to interfere, or it switches to the service of instinct, justifying the decision already made by instinct. I will be with him because he's a good guy. He has a cool motorcycle, and then he will quit drinking, stealing, and rampaging. People around you may say, wake up, he's a total jerk and a loser. He'll cry in jail. You'll be alone with a child and no means of livelihood. But their words, as well as any other factors that hinder the instinctive program, are completely ignored or aggressively suppressed. It's a familiar situation, isn't it? By and large, a person governed by ancient instincts is like an old computer in which both ancient programs and more modern ones that conflict with them are running in parallel. The intellect also tries to hinder the work of inborn programs. At times it serves them. All this gives constant failures, hang-ups, stress, depression, neurosis, psychosis, etc., and requires constant adjustment and correction. In the following videos, we'll understand the relationship of the sexes in the context of how the ancient instincts work. You will see how those things that we spend our whole lives puzzling over will become simple and understandable. First of all, we will be interested in the instincts governing the behavior of a man and a woman in a pair. The paired coexistence of the sexes in humans has existed long enough to be fixed in the inborn behavioral programs. For example, within any self-contained group of males and females, after some time a sufficiently large number of stable pairs are bound to form. This is instinctive behavior. At the same time, animal herd instincts work in parallel. For example, despite the existence of a stable couple, people can have many sexual contacts on the side. Instincts do not exist in our heads in isolation. They are connected and constantly interact with each other. That is, they form a single program of instinctive behavior. Similarly, the well-known Windows operating system installed on your personal computer consists of many programs that interact with each other and with the systems of the computer itself. However, scientists, for the convenience of study, conditionally divide this single program, which controls human behavior, into separate blocks. For example, the self-preservation instinct is a block of behavioral programs that are responsible for human safety. The sexual or reproductive instinct is the block of behavioral programs that are responsible for the reproduction process. The hierarchical instinct is responsible for the rivalry and control of individuals within the group, and so on. But this division is relative. Instincts control human behavior, influencing it with specific states, emotions, and desires. If you have any desire or emotion, then don't doubt that you are controlled by an instinctive program inherited from your distant ancestors. For example, if you want to have sex with a woman, then be sure that you are ruled by your sexual instinct. And if you feel angry at your boss, it is undoubtedly the work of your hierarchical instinct. In general, instincts is a general term for inborn patterns of behavior that result from the functioning of the brain. Neurophysiologists who study the mechanisms of brain functioning consider it incorrect to use the term instincts to refer to phenomena of a different nature. And the physiological mechanisms that determine the final behavior of an animal can indeed be very complex and diverse. However, for ethologists who observe the final behavior of living creatures, on the contrary, this term is very convenient. What matters to them is the actual presence of innate behavioral traits. These are what they study. The same innate programs act with different intensity in different people. This difference may be due to different numbers of neurons in a particular area of the brain, different numbers of receptors or connections, and different concentrations of hormones. This, in turn, accounts for a greater variability in behavior and reactions. For example, in a situation where an emancipated woman orders her husband to stop sexual intercourse, different men may have different reactions. One man's sexual instinct will be stronger than his self-preservation instinct. The man will not be able to stop and will be imprisoned for marital rape. Another man's instinct for self-preservation may be so much stronger than his sexual instinct that it will completely disable the erection mechanism, and the man will become impotent out of fear. If you know the evolutionary history of our species, it is not difficult to understand the whole gamut of instincts of different levels and different groups. For example, we know that at different stages of evolution, humans were an unarmed, weakly armed, and heavily armed species. Each stage is fixed in the form of a behavioral program controlling a human being with the help of emotions. And when man finds himself in conditions identical to those in which the behavioral program was formed, it immediately turns on. When I walk unarmed through a wild forest inhabited by predators, I feel danger, I feel fear, I feel like a helpless object of the hunt, a potential victim. I try not to make noise, keep my ears open, and avoid dangerous places. If I come across a good stick, I instinctively take it with me. If I have a stick or hunting knife, I feel relatively safe and ready to repel an attack. I try to make noise to scare off the predator from afar, to show that I am not prey. And if I have a gun, I already feel like a dangerous predator. My gait automatically becomes crouching, and my senses scan the space in search of prey. In the three situations described, there are three different levels of innate programs in the human firmware. Let us consider the system of relations between people in the light of the work of ancient instincts. The biological unit throughout the entire evolutionary period of Homo sapiens was a community of individuals including males and females. Depending on the stage of the evolutionary process, the size and hierarchical structure of such a community is called herd, tribe, clan, or family. There are interesting patterns in the structure of these communities.